talk about when it comes to invasive pests, this may be an unruly group.
Hang on a minute, you really can't hear. Now then.
We're starting.
I'm like,
Oh, is something else going on?
Nothing.
Welcome. We're glad you all came. We're sorry we have this issue that we have to deal with, but we do have this issue that we have to deal with, and our commission is committed to doing as much as we can in the region to see what we can do to help people eradicate these kinds of things that are kind of overtaking our forests and all of our natural habitat. I want to just quickly tell you who the presenters are going to be. John Evans is going to start, and he's more general but some specifics, and then Bill McKim about Japanese knotweed, and then Lou Levine, who's going to talk about more, and Cliff Adler, who's going to be talking probably most of all about buckthorn, but kind of in general.
oh, more than that, yeah.
Yeah, and John Anderson, who's going to talk about garlic mustard and about using sheep and goats on top of Putney Mountain to get rid of the invasives that are up there. I wanted to tell one thing. There's a couple of people, well, there's actually 4 people here from Camp Arden Road. Are there more? Anyway, one of the things we like to see maybe happen eventually is that people would take responsibility for their own piece of property, and maybe we could have teams of people that would take responsibility for roads. And that's what Hector's wife Suzanne has suggested, that if enough of us on Camp Arden Road, it's 2 miles long, you know, maybe we could get on top of the invasives on Camp Arden Road. So if others of you have ideas about roads that you would do, and it doesn't have to be just Dummerston, but we want to hear, it all goes, you know, it's the county, it's the region, it's everywhere. So, let me just turn it over to John Evans.
You're going to change the slides for me?
I'm going to change the slides for you. The first
Tell me
slide,
what it is.
Light?
Dim the lights.
yeah, dim the lights. And this is,
On the right-hand side there?
Who knows?
There's a light panel, it says,
Yeah.
but I don't know what's what. Just do something.
I might get scared.
Good.
That's good.
Keep going. That's good. That's too much.
this is, I think
the side one on.
this is, and I just wanted to use this kind of as a
That's
opening
good.
slide.
What about this, over there?
I want to see my toes.
That one's a favorite. Yeah, that's perfect.
That's right.
That's fine.
This was sent to me by somebody, I don't think she's here, but that she has a thing called Tree of Heaven in her yard, and it's spreading to all the neighbors' yards, and she can't get rid of it, and she thinks it was planted there quite some time ago because it was called Tree of Heaven and because it was next to a church. And if anybody has ideas on how to get rid of Tree of Heaven.
Knock the church down.
Pardon?
Just knock the church down.
Not the church down, no heaven.
Actually, this slide is from 2004, which was the first Conservation Commission invasive plant presentation at the community center. Not much has changed since that time, but I guess, you know.
Not we just moved up on the list, I think.
Well, you know, we did have a hurricane,
Yeah.
or
Right.
whatever you want to call it, heavy
Yep.
rain, and it
Broke
did,
'em up,
sorry.
yeah, downstream.
Yeah, I just drove down from northern Vermont a while ago, and it's from here to the wall in river valleys. And it's just,
And that's purple loosestrife, right?
Right, purpose is
Yeah.
Purpose loop stripe.
well,
Did it go?
I didn't try to edit it. It's from 2004, I've grown up since then.
His spelling.
So, but, you know, barberry is probably the most common of our problems. Bittersweet and buckthorn. I mean, the 4 Bs. Burning bush we don't have, and we'll, not in the, I'll show you a slide of burning bush. It can dominate the understory. Once we get, I don't know, many people, I have goutweed. You can kill it with vinegar, which is nice, but, so you don't need to use poison.
Oh, cool, that mouse is.
Okay, let's keep going. This is a natural understory without invasive plants. We used to have a lot of this land in Vermont, and we're losing it pretty rapidly. I was just up in the Northeast Kingdom a couple of months ago with a forestry group, and they have a lot of the plants that we do now. And it was rather depressing. We thought that there were places in Vermont where we wouldn't have those because it was climate related. Well, climate doesn't really work that way. This is what happens when barberry takes over a forest. I don't know if you've seen this, but if you travel around Vermont and you're involved with invasive plants, you will see things like this. My neighbor and our road foreman hunts deer in New Jersey in an area which was as clear as that first slide. But Lee goes down there to shoot deer with a bow, and they only hunt in the barberry, which is in like this everywhere in this river valley I used to fish in. And the deer know it, and they have their paths. And if you can brave through and you don't donate too much blood, you can get deer very easily. But that's the concern. I mean, we really don't have the kind of intense invasions that you will find in New Jersey and Pennsylvania in particular. But unless we do something, this is what we will get.
And do they kill the trees? Are those trees dead?
No, these are alive.
Oh, okay.
What they do is they dominate the understory, so the seeds from whatever is coming down from the trees, you will not find young maples or oaks or whatever in the understory, because when you get down there, you'll see that, and you don't have the duff, and there are a lot of reasons why.
It's sort of a middle story. The lower story can't get any.
Well, that's what. Well, our forests generally are uneven age. You know, we have some young plants, but our forests are old forests. By and large, we don't have a whole lot of saplings and seedlings. You go walk around Dummerston, and we don't have what we'd like to see. And the saplings and seedlings will always be a problem if you have a lot of barberry. This is it was a picture I took for this slide presentation. So there I have a field on Kipling Road, and this is back from the field. It extends about 70 yards, and it's 2.5 times the width of this room. Bill Schmidt came in, and he has a license which enables him to spray chemicals for barberry, and killed a lot of it. But it came back disturbingly quickly. The lower left is what I did, and rather, these are just all the stems of a barberry.
Machete.
And no, it's not even that big a plant. I mean, you get down on your hands and knees, you'll find out what barberry is like. And every single one of those stems, what I learned later on, I take a bingo marker and fill it full of Roundup, about 50% solution, and dab it, and it does kill. But this stuff, these control measures were done in 2004, and it took 10 years for the populations to start to really rebound. And I'll have a logging either this winter or next winter, and I'll have to go back through the property. And the barberry is in a lot of places it wasn't before. Next one. Here was, this is on Kipling Road. It was my first project. It's probably 24 feet, and there are 2 barberry plants, dominated the entire, you couldn't even see into the field. I had somebody, well, I won't mention the name, but somebody who agriculturally knows a lot, told me why, everything's going to grow back. Why, that area has stayed absolutely free. There was no seed bank, It's opened with other things now. We got a lot of garlic mustard that came in the wild. But that was easy. That went in 2 seasons. Just pick it out and dump it on the ground. This is Asiatic bittersweet. You'll see it as these little skinny stems. The big one on the left, I used to take around to presentations. It's almost 4 inches in diameter. I had barberry.
Don't
Don't we have one right here on the table?
Yeah, we have a couple of them.
It's twice the size of this.
What?
I call them pythons. I mean, they are. But, you know, I mean, this is 100 years of neglect of a farm that probably, I don't know how old they are, I have no idea. But they were up 50 feet in the trees. And what I would do is to just wrap it chain at a tractor and wrap it chain and go very slowly, maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour, and you hear the noise as these vines, I mean, some of them are 2 inches in diameter, unwrap from the tree, and then it falls in an absolute torrent of fun. It was really fun to do it. I've taken most of it out, but now if you drive on Kipling Road, you'll see a lot of bittersweet where I worked on a project this spring. It's way up in the trees, 30, 40 feet, but the trees, some of them are old, and I don't dare pull it even when I have a long chain because the tree's up 50 feet and then it's liable to drop on me unless I'm careful. Yes.
Now, if you cut the plant at the bottom like that didn't pull it out of the tree, would the part left on the tree
Oh, yeah.
die? And then would it
Absolutely.
break as the tree grew?
No, they last forever.
In other words,
Like
the
that.
tree would be girdled
The
anyway.
wood is hard and it
Well,
stops the tree growing.
barberry, the leaves of the bittersweet rather are dense enough to stop photosynthesis, so they can kill that way. And that can get so heavy it will pull a tree down. I have a maple tree that stretches from a little more than here. The wall is bent all the way down by a bittersweet, about that big, just wrapped around, just pulled it all the way down the ground, and there's an extension of it, goes up 30 feet into a tree, so it's been there a long time. I haven't taken it out yet, I'm working on that section. It's just sort of a reminder that bittersweet will kill trees or damage them. Japanese knotweed, when I took this, 12 years ago, was not that hard to find, but they did the densities of the plant, that's the Dummerston Bridge there, were not nearly as obvious as we find today.
And Bill is going to talk quite a lot about it, so,
That's a hard plant.
yeah.
I started this one, a lot of it came out of England, and the Japanese knotweed was going under parking lots and literally pushing up parking lots and buildings where the foundations of buildings were starting to get, right? So they had government money to protect buildings. I'm not aware of that around here. But I'll say the one thing for bittersweet, which is I find very hard to control. I use the tractor now, and I have this chain that has big, I don't know, it looks like, those old torture things you put around people with all these spikes go into you, like, it's like that. And I pull the bittersweet out of the ground, and sometimes I'll pull a root from here to the wall. It just pops out. It's fun. I mean, you need tools. But you have to take some pleasure in this thing. If you go out there,
How big a tractor do you need?
I have a 30 horsepower truck. That was plenty. Four-wheel drive. It's not enough to plow a field, but it can do that. This was just to remind residents in 2004 that there was a lot of garlic mustard. I don't want to mention this other than, at the time, we were thinking about trying to get people out on the road in the spring, families and children and so forth. And if you take a look at East-West Road, you realize that you'll need adult supervision at best, and very often it's an adult's job because cars really go. And there are excellent garlic mustard populations on East-West roads.
And John is going to talk more about that.
Yeah.
John Anderson.
Burning bush looks nice as a foundation plant and so forth. You can't kill it. You know, that's why it was sold in nurseries. But seldom do you see burning bush in the woods. But if you let it go, I remember there was a woman lived on Park Lawton Road, and she had a burning bush, ornamental. And I said, you know, you're going to find burning bush all over because they're prolific. And she said, oh, I don't know any. You know, and we walked around, you know, and there were little burning bushes like this. I had a situation with burning bush where there were a couple of big plants that we pulled out, but I counted about 100. I mean, in an area of maybe 20 square feet, I would count 12 and 14 little ones, but I'd never see them. It wasn't until November, when everything else is gone, that you see the very dark red burning bush. And
We have a lot of that on our property, and the way I tell it is because there's a really sharp, sort of a square
Yeah.
stem.
Yeah.
And
But
it's pervasive everywhere, and I just have to keep pulling it.
I started a statewide organization dealing with invasive plants a number of years ago. And the reason that I really got involved was the quarantine laws were not extended to stop the sale of burning bush. So it was the Vermont Land Trust, the Nature Conservancy, Vermont Covered, and the Vermont Woodlands Association. But we found out in, I guess it's about 2007 or 8, that we were ahead of our time. We wanted to act faster, and state agencies within 7 months, I canceled the whole thing and closed it down. I had gone to Carolyn Partridge, who was the head of the Ag Committee for the Vermont House of Representatives. And I told her I wanted to accelerate these there were 3 or 4 plants, and to add them because they were being sold in nurseries. Because why are we selling this stuff in nurseries? And anyhow, she held a House hearing, and I testified by telephone, and we were finished as an organization in a matter of days. The state agencies do not like the legislature telling them what to do. And since I was seen as the ringleader of all of this, you know, it was best that I just step aside.
Got just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we'll go quickly through it. But when I gave the talk in 2004, I had mentioned I used glyphosate. And I was negotiating with the Agency of Agriculture because I wanted a whole new category of invasive plant control for landowners like you. You didn't need to study for hours. And Cornell was going to write the manual. We had a whole lot of things going. But when I mentioned that I had said that I used garlic mustard on my own land, which I can do, the response was, if you ever do it again, we're going to send enforcement agencies to your home, and you will be cited.
Or you can round up on your own property.
Exactly. Well, you can't, unless I have a commercial license, I can't tell you anything that I do, unless I break the law. I mean, it's just the way it is.
But that's not the case anymore,
It
right?
sure is.
Really?
Absolutely. The law has not changed.
No.
You need a commercial license.
To recommend a chemical.
But the county foresters had an easy way out. They were certified one day. They all got, you know, the permission with a commercial pesticide license with a one-day course.
So this is kind of a summary.
This was a different. The question is, what do you do? Where do you start? You can start with the dense populations, or you can go outlying things. The idea is to reverse that process. Just go as far out as you can find a plant and start controlling them, and then come back toward the center. Well, I started out and I says, well, of course they got invasive plants like barberry, so we're going to do this. You know, but the recommendation is to work from the outside in. And another thing, look for, there are other things you look for. Look for the species dispensed by birds, like barberry. Go ahead. It took a long time for people to realize that any trail into your property, and particularly if you have somebody even doing a logging, if their tractor or skidder or whatever it is hasn't been washed thoroughly, they will bring into your land seeds from somebody else. Well, where do you go first? You know, it's pretty obvious.
All right. There'll be time to ask questions. Then we'll come to, we're going to go ahead to.
Thank you.
Afterward, unless there's things that come up that are really need to address at the moment. So, Bill McKim.
Right. Okay, well, little personal note, I first got interested in invasives through the glossy leaf buckthorn, which I was blocking the trail up to Prospect Hill. And so I worked with people there from the commission, and we tried to clear it off that. Because it was a lady living right next to it, who had planted it, and she said, "It's so pretty." And because we couldn't get through that field, you know, I think Sam Bunker's field, somebody else before that. But anyway, so I got interested through that, and then the next thing I noticed that I'm always driving down East-West Road, and then the Schoolhouse Road, and right between the Schoolhouse Road and Route 5 was this huge clump of stuff that was just coming up, and I thought it was horrible and ugly, and it looked like some kind of bamboo, and so I inquired about that, and found out that it was this Japanese knotweed, which is known to most authoritative invasive removers as the Godzilla of invasives. It's a long-term process to get rid of it, and it will always constantly come back. Now, I think most of you, probably all of you, know that that Irene just took the knotweed on the river and just planted it everywhere, and then the trucks that do the lawn mowing on Route 9 going all the way to Keene, they planted it, and then they don't mow it because they think it's pretty, and so you've probably seen, you know, it grows to 8 feet high, and it's a monoculture, so it's totally thick, and I don't know what they're doing this summer, but they were leaving it alone, and it's going crazy. And then I noticed that all on Route 30 that it grows out into the highway, and so, you know, the town, not the town, but the state highway departments just are beginning to learn that they got to do something. And so they sort of snip it off, you know, at the top, and everybody knows that that is not the way you handle this wicked invasive. I'll just give you a little background. It was introduced to the Western world from, of course, Japan, as most were, and imported to the UK and then to North America as ornamentals. It makes pretty flowers toward the end of the summer. It was called, the name for it is Polygonum cuspidatum, if you want to commit to memory, or Fallopian japonica, also known as Mexican bamboo, and it's got a lot of other names, fleece flower, and Japanese bamboo, and but most of them call it the killer bamboo because it will kill anything in its path other than people. But I think of it as something to kill myself. So anyway, I started to work on it, And there are 4 methods of getting rid of this noxious thing and most of us have to use all of those methods to do it. I started with the least effective method, but if anything, I'm determined and I'm willing to stay after it. For that plot, that group that I talked about on Route 5 there, I started working on some 8 years ago, I think. Every month, starting in May, once a month, I cut it back with the, I call it a weed, it's a grass whip. Just knock it down, knock it down, knock it down. And it used to take me a couple of hours to do that whole thing. It now takes me about 20 minutes. And I still do it every, it keeps coming back. I'm going to tell you a lot of other techniques to do it. I'm just giving you some personal, just a few personal, a personal story. Then after that, I will get.
How often did you cut it during the summer?
Once a month.
Once a month, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and once a month is about, if you're going to do it, use that method for the rest of your life and for the rest of your children's lives.
That's how well it works, huh?
You can do that, yes, and I'm over 80 and I'm wondering who's going to take over,
Which is this clump on 5? I'll see it on the way home or tomorrow.
Oh yeah, well you'll just see it as little flower things, not flower, they're only about ankle high now because.
Oh, nice.
Because you whack them every month.
I whack them every month and their big growth cycle is in May and June. And after that, they put their energy into leaves, trying to get strength.
Right.
And then toward the end of the summer, if they're tall enough, they'll put out some flowers. And then at the end of the summer, they draw everything back into their roots and wait till next year, and then they try to go back up again.
Is it less vigorous, Bill? I mean, you say it keeps growing back, but...
Oh, yes, they weaken, they spread.
Okay, you haven't said
They
that.
spread, because they will tell you. No, I'm just giving you a story.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you I haven't given you the true poop on how you really get rid of it. Yeah, so I'm going to do all of that in a minute.
All right.
I was just telling you this little story about me and my persistence, and the knotweed is. Well, anyway, so why don't I give you the facts now? Knotweed, the most effective beginning method for knotweed, if you can do it, is smothering them with black tarps. Now, people say, hey, well, what if they come up? They can come up through pavement. Why won't they come up through a black tarp? And the reason for that, the reason they won't is if the tarp is big enough and it will cut off all light, whereas old pavement won't. There'll be little lights coming through, and then they'll find their way and they work their way through it. And then the black tarp will. So you still need to sort of walk over the tarp. This is in your land, on your own land, which I can't do on public property next to the road. Let me just finish that one. There are 2 other places that I have been working on over the last 8 years. There's the one, Turner and Renault's land, just to the north of them. There was a big growth that was way up there. And for the last, I got permission from the previous owners to cut that down about 5 years ago. And so I've got that pretty much under control, and I've asked Turner and Renault to take over. Okay. I got more important things. And then there's another one which you probably have noticed if you've looked. That culvert south of Turner and Renault and just south of Hidden Acres Campground, the road makes a little right turn and there's a culvert underneath the road that you don't necessarily see, but there is a big culvert. And the knotweed has been carried down the water into that whole edge of the culvert. So I go in there.
At the bottom, on the campsite.
On the campsite and whack that down once a month. And so that's just what I've done so far. Now, here's what you should do. because that is, according to my Google article here, is the least effective method. But it's kept me in shape.
People do this for fun, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I can't swing a baseball bat, but I can swing one of these guys. Okay, so let's go back to the tarp. If you have land that you own, or that you can, and you've got a patch which is small enough so it's not oozing out everywhere on the sides, then the tarp method is very successful. But what you have to do is to cut down the knotweed before you put the tarp down, and you have to. And if it's the mature plants, which are they can cut through the tarp because they're sharp. You've got to get them down to ground level, and they're all attached to rhizomes that are sort of clumpy things, and you should pull them out. And I see, Leslie, what's your name? Oh, who is it? Who asked me? Oh, you. What's your name?
Ainsley.
Ainsley. She puts those in her cellar, in plastic bags of rhizomes. But anyway, you get the tarp down, you get the rhizomes down, and then plants will try to come up through it, and then you just take a walk on them every now and then, and just walk them down, because they're getting less and less strength through the summer because they have no light, no light, no strength.
But can't they go under that tarp? Can't the roots
Rhizomes
go
spread out.
Yeah,
find someplace
they'll try to do
outside
that.
the tarp to go up?
Right, exactly, yeah. So you have to watch out for the edges. That's why it's recommended that you have a pretty big tarp for a smaller patch, or overlap the tarps, or overlap new tarps on that, because they will get weak and give up. It's not exactly give up; they'll just weaken. Okay, all right. So that's the time. Okay. The next method most effective method is. This didn't happen here. I said nothing. You didn't hear me say this.
Okay.
It's poison. And so you don't want me to use the word glyphosate. I'm going to give you some other words, other products that have glyphosate in them that you can buy. And I have bought. They're weed killers. And of course, Roundup is one. There's a thing called Gallop, Landmaster, Pondmaster, Ranger, Rodeo, and Touchdown. I think I'm familiar with Roundup, and that's what I've used. Now, there's two things you can do with Roundup. One is if the plant is quite mature and is tall and everything, you cut the top off it, and then you've got this hole in the middle, like a bamboo hole, and you just squeeze a little Roundup into it. What was recommended to me by someone who will remain anonymous, who is authority on this, is you wait till the end of the season. You're chopping down the stalks as you go, and then stop at the beginning of August and let them grow and flower. And then at the end of the season, just pretty much before, not too close to, but before the frost, you spray them with Roundup or something like that. Then when they're drawing, in their life cycle, they're drawing their nourishment down into the ground, and there it stays all winter, just mixing it with the poison, and that should work. I did that last year, and it didn't work. But I did it too late. They were already starting to turn yellow. I'm dying to do it this year, pretty soon. Okay, so the first method is tarp, the second method is poison, the third method is the chopping, and then the fourth method is just digging them up. And when you dig them up, since they have roots that go down several feet, all you can do is dig up the rhizomes, and as you said, do something with them, maybe burn them, okay, or something like that. Don't put them in your compost. All right, and I think that's about all I have to say. Is there?
Okay, we'll have time for questions after. So,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
So I'm Lynn Levine, and I'm a forester, and one way I have dealt with all these different invasives is landowner by landowner. So it might seem overwhelming, but looking at your particular property is the only way that I've gotten people to do some work on it. So I've had, I don't know, 12, 15 projects going all different things, different ways. What I have here is a sign-up sheet that you can receive a call from the Vermont Department of Wildlife Biologist or Forester to schedule a visit to come to your land and look at what's going on. So this is giving permission for them to do that and do an analysis on your land. So I don't know if I should put it here or pass it around.
Who's the person? Bill Gunther?
No, it's not. There's many different people that are doing it, actually. Travis Hart, they work for NRCS or they're wildlife biologists, working with Fish and Wildlife. So.
And are they going to tell us how to use pesticides, or are they going to tell us how not to use pesticides?
They're gonna.
Herbicides, sorry.
They're gonna review the whole property and then come up with a plan. And then talk about how much funding they can provide for doing, that's the key.
Yeah, they got me interested.
Okay, the funding that, that they can have to do the work. So they will not fund manual extraction, but they will fund all sorts of different kinds of chemical use. All sorts of possibilities. So would you like me to pass this around? Yeah, okay. And there's a pen here for you to.
So this is just asking for somebody to contact you to talk about what they can offer. You're not signing up for anything other than to be contacted.
Yeah, just to be contacted. That's basically what and then they'll come and visit, basically. So, besides all the projects I work on all over the place, we have found together that pulling invasives is fun. It is. So how our venture began was that we have a nature trail going through our property, and there's a wetland in one area. It's a wet area. It's not a wetland that you can't walk through, just wet. And slowly over time, we would pull out 1 or 2 buckthorn, and then the next time we go, wow, that's not hard at all, because they were only this big and skinny. So that's what we're talking about right here. And then we just kept on pulling more and more, and then we found other invasives that were Japanese barberry and bittersweet that were all mixed up, and then we kept on pulling. That's basically what we did through the whole process. So if we continue on, but what I found for the non-chemical use is girdling these huge buckthorn that can be this big. You can girdle it with this, and it's and you have to double girdle it, because you're weakening the tree. If you cut it, done. It's going to just sprout back up. But if you double girdle, you're weakening it. So what you do is like this, and then you're done. It's so quick, within just a couple of minutes, this saw, because you can go back.
You're not really girdling all the way around.
No, you are, but it's just, you're going like this, and then you're going like this.
And it survives through that.
Yes, it's called girdling, it's just going through the bark, through the layer of growth.
If you go to the cambium, I would think that would kill the tree.
It will kill, no, the idea is it will kill it, but slowly.
Yeah.
So it won't sprout. You're absolutely right, it does kill the tree. That's what girdling does. So
it won't sprout.
So it won't sprout, or if it does sprout.
So it has to be the whole circumference of the tree.
So you have to do the whole circumference, and you have to do it twice.
Then how big are those trees?
Those-
Is it 1 inch, 2 inch
They're about this big.
Hold your hands up, please. What's that?
That's a 6
7 or 8.
Exaggerate.
7, 8.
4 to 6.
That's the biggest, maybe a
The
little
biggest, but 4 to
smaller than
it
that.
really works. So let's see some more pictures. So that is one tree that I double girdled. It's a tree, it's not a tree, right? It's buckthorn.
Yeah.
But and you can see that the branches are starting to die, and this happened within 2 years. The death of what we're talking about. And then you can see the girdling going on here. Sometimes you do have to come back the next year and pull with the little sprouts, but then that's it. You have something to add?
I just would say, yeah, I mean, the sprouts will happen below the girdle.
Right.
Above it seems to die quickly, our experience. And then, yeah, you know, sort of come back a year, a couple of years, knock down the new stuff, the new growth.
They're root suckers is what they are.
That's right.
Well, no, it's,
Well, it is, it's coming,
Coppicing.
and it's also
It
coming
may
from,
be
it can come
roots.
from the
It
stem.
can come from the stem too.
So the buds
Yeah.
that are still alive there, so it's a combination of both of those. So,
It won't make berries after that?
no, it won't. Not when you're weakening it, you're stopping the, from the fruiting is going on,
Right.
and you're just, it's great. So here's one buckthorn that you can see is huge. You know, what we're talking about, dead.
It's rather pretty when it's dead.
12 feet tall? It's hard to
Here's-
get a perspective. How big was that?
That was probably,
Yeah, you're probably
12
10,
feet.
15
Yeah, 12
feet
feet.
high. There'll be another one that I think you can see a whole tree.
yeah. So this is the root system. And one of the things that got really exciting the second year was that I went through this area and I pulled and I got the whole root that was dead. So I killed it by the girdling, and then I came back and pulled it. My gosh, that is like the most powerful feeling, to pull the whole root up. Okay, next.
What do the berries look like?
They're little red berries.
Some of them are
Hard.
There's an example there somewhere.
They start out black and they eventually mature to be red.
Birds love them.
Well, they eat them.
They eat-
They're not very nutritious for birds, but
No.
they eat them.
And they cause diarrhea.
And that way
And
they
they
get rid of the
spread the
seeds. Then they plant them somewhere else.
Exactly, they keep on spreading the seeds. So you get, I put these are the blue sneakers, okay? That's the picture of the root system that I pulled up. So it's really big, but dead. So I could pull it up. And then another example of 10 feet.
It's still standing, but it's dead.
Right.
After a few years of follow-up.
And now you can see a root system dead that we pulled up. And that's what I'm saying, I pulled up. Cliff and I did this together. It was a joint adventure.
That's a sneaker, the blue thing, to give you a sense of scale.
My sneaker. So you know, again, it's just effective, girdling, double girdling them. And then, you know, going back and getting the little sprouts. And then the joy of pulling up that whole root system that's dead.
How thick do they have to be? I mean, can they be very thin and double girdle it?
You can actually get something as little as this and double girdling it.
2.5,
That's-
3 inches?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not much less than that.
Oh, okay.
But the other way that I've done it, and I don't really know how effective this is, but it's to weaken the smaller ones by going like scraping them this way. Oh, there's another way of doing it for the really little ones. And so this is the area that we were working on that we fell in love with. And it is 1/6 of an acre. And if you go to the next slide, so this is free of buckthorn, and again, 1/6 of an acre. There's a brook running, you know, an intermittent stream brook running through it. And on Cliff's birthday, we got rid of the last buckthorn. So it was really exciting. So that's it.
So most of the buckthorn I see are not big guys like that.
Right.
They're tiny little shoots, maybe a half an inch
Right.
diameter.
Pull.
Or maybe an inch diameter, which make it difficult to pull. But if you just cut them and drop a Roundup on the exposed stem, will that kill them?
That is one for certain. If you have a stump like this, you can put Roundup on it and kill it. But if it's this big, just try it. You can just pull them out. It's, the only time you can't is if it's sprouted, okay, and it's made a big, a lot, then it's really hard to do it. Otherwise, you really can, but you can also do the other way.
And they only propagate through berries. They don't have rhizomes or stolons or anything like that.
Well, they're actually, I'm not sure. I think
I
they
don't
do.
know.
I think when I pull them up, I can pull up more than one.
So there's some sort of connection. And
Yeah,
some sort of
yeah,
connection.
so there is that connection. And now Cliff can go on his 110 hours on that project.
You do, the roots seem separate.
So, I hate exercising and I don't go to gyms, and sort of my physical work has for the last 2 years has been dealing with invasives on our property at Dutton Pine State Forest. You should visit sometime. And I mean, literally, it's sort of my therapy. Since I retired from teaching 2 years ago, I feel stronger, healthier. It's just, so I have fun. I don't do anything that's not manual. And, you know, in terms of what I think Hector said, but, you know, if you saw some of these things here, just quickly, you know, things like this, basically, you can pull up. You know, try to pull from lower down so they don't break. I mean, there are the things, I mean, if you've dealt with this at all, there are buckthorn, just little sprouts. I mean, you know, if you let the things go to seed, you're gonna get a carpet of 1-inch little things. So get on your knees, you know, and pull them out and put them someplace where they won't be on the ground, because they're gonna root, they're gonna re-sprout. Pretty much for all of this stuff. Hang them up in a crotch of a tree, lay them on a down log that's going to give you, keep them off the ground. So, you know, for the most part, I have not burned anything. No, I just keep it off the ground. If it's on the ground, it's gonna reroot. So I would say all of these things are things that manually, you know, if you have a little oomph here, I'm not the strongest person in the world, but these can come up. If they start getting to the point where they don't just come up all on their own, then, you know, they're shallow rooted. So if you follow, what I do is, you know, follow with my hands, you know, gloved hands, it'll have 4 or 5 root systems. If I get a few of them, then, you know, manually loosen them up, then I may at that point be able to pull it. Or I'll put my shovel underneath it. Again, it's really shallow rooted. Put my shovel, use it as a lever, and then get it up. When, you know, this is one that I pulled up just a couple of days ago. I just thought, you know, so this is how big it is, right? You know?
What plant is this?
These are all, what I'm looking at right now, these are all buckthorns, you know? And so, again, for something like this, I pretty much just followed it manually and then use just what I said, use the shovel to try to leverage it up. When I can't budge the thing at all, when I don't have any sense of movement from it, then another thing that I've been able to do is cut the thing off. And if you just cut it off and do nothing else, it's going to sprout. You know, you've heard that a million times. And so this becomes a lever. So I can, you know, put it my way. you know, and then it takes, again, sometimes I have to, you know, use my body to kind of weight it. Sometimes, you know, if the ground is soft, if it's really dry, it may be looser soil. At most, again, I might help it a little bit with a shovel. So that was, you know, that kind of height, and it came out. Again, all manually. And here's a similar thing that I cut off, and it had 3 stems, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it takes some time, it takes some work. I'm happy as a clam. Like I said, it's my workout, and it's the kind of workout that I can countenance. And if they're really bigger than that, then double girdle, you know, double girdle, and
Tell me when you want me to
go ahead.
go along.
Right. Well, I just wanted to kind of see that. So double girdling you've already seen. This was sort of a sense of some of what you see there. Some of them that weren't so big. Just initial work. Go ahead. Another one. So there's like one of the one that I showed you that I eventually severed and then, you know, put it in 4 different directions. Here's several stems and that I used as a lever. It's a pile. It's one of the piles that I create. Once it's something that just gets higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. That's all. It's almost all buckthorn there. This was, remind me, Lynn, do you remember what? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. So this is one of the bittersweets. I mean, John talked about the stuff falling down from the tree. I didn't have any ability to do that. I didn't have any tractor. So I severed, you know, that.
Perfect.
And then again, on my hands and knees, I then followed the roots out from its base. They probably were, you know, a diameter similar to this one. And just follow the roots. And, you know, some of it you can actually sort of pull. How far do the roots go? For something that's this diameter, how far in each direction from the base would you imagine the roots would go?
15 feet. 15 feet?
40 feet.
40.
And again, I mean, they get a little narrow, but I mean, it's amazing. They branch and they branch again and they branch again and they branch again. Am I getting every little fiber? No, but go ahead, next. That's the same thing. This is some of the sense of the root. You don't have a scale, that's my hand. That's not the 40-foot one, but it's still, it went on a long way. And the white is just to give you a contrast so you can see.
You actually dug 40 feet?
Yeah, and again, some of it, you know, once you get going, some of it you can pull, and then when it can't get any further, use a shovel to leverage. But yeah, all sort of patiently. There are some of those that took maybe a couple hours.
So the 40
yeah.
feet for the roots of like fenestrating out can be bud from any point of those roots?
Well, in general, if you look at them, you see root things coming up. Yeah, so theoretically it could. Yeah.
So if you just chop the stem off,
it
could reincarnate at any point along.
Yeah. And they do. So that's why my goal has been to get things by the roots. I don't know if this is a pile with some Japanese barberry. This is Japanese barberry, pulled it up today.
Yeah.
I pulled something not super big that I could bring here for you to get a sense of. It's thorny. And it wasn't mentioned here, but at a previous workshop about invasives, well, about ticks. barberry in particular, but invasives are a real, you get 10 times the tick population within a barberry kind of infestation.
Huh,
So it's another reason to
why?
remove it.
10 times, that's right.
It's
Moisture.
why,
Humidity.
Humidity, moisture.
It's got, yeah, the reason that it's so good for ticks is that it has like this perfect humidity level. The ticks need a
because
certain
of the density.
humidity.
Yeah.
Density on the
It
leaves.
just is their perfect air and moisture and habitat. And then
Huh.
also, if you imagine the rodents that the ticks live on.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like a beautiful habitat for the
For them,
rodent, where they can't be predated well.
There's a previous BCTV whole workshop that goes through that whole history. The man who came here
You
from
can-
Connecticut to talk. Go
And
ahead.
you can find it on our website, it's dummerstonconservation.com, or the BCTV website.
His name is Jeff Ward.
Jeff Ward, who came here from the Connecticut Experiment Station, and talked to us about that. So it's there,
Ticks and
about the issue with the ticks and the barberry.
Yeah. So next, again, that's just some of the roots. This is another bittersweet, and that's the roots all kind of balled up. You know, that's like 40 feet in every direction kind of the roots. Another just big pile. I leave behind these big piles of primarily buckthorn, but whatever it is. I mean, if it's multiflora rose or barberry, where I've been, that's been the primary culprits.
And that'll just rot on the
Yeah, if it's, well, you know, if it's above, the bottom part is above, the rest of it, yeah, it just dries out and I, go on.
Do you root up multiflora rose too?
That's what you saw there, yeah. You know, with a shovel if I can't do it manually. Yeah, I just sort of, I mean, I'm dressed up like in rain pants and raincoat, you know, primarily because of the ticks.
Another gauntlets?
And I've done really well with that kind of garb. So, go ahead.
What time of the year do you usually do it?
Not too hot. I
I do it, you know, kind of as soon as I can in the spring, and I'll do it until it's too cold. I
in the
tend to go
morning?
out in the mornings because I hate the heat. And another, is there anything more?
Morning workout.
Is that it? Yeah, a couple hours most of the time. So this is sort of a picture of an area that was overgrown with all primarily buckthorn. It's sort of a forest, you know, now. I mean, this would have had all that stuff growing all through there.
Are other things coming back?
Well, you know, in this area, and then the first slide was, you know, Dutton, and just briefly, because it's quick. I spent the last 2 summers, I've spent 120 hours sort of removing invasives and Dutton pines. I've been thrilled that what I've gotten from the roots basically has not come back. You know, just a year later. I'll find things that I missed the first time around, and of course it's never, I mean, following up is important. Catch the little things, but once you get a good cycle, there's not a whole lot to do to keep the modest new growth from coming back.
But do native species move in? Because some invasives like spotted gnat could actually poison the soil to eliminate competitors.
I guess we'll see with time, but in Dutton pines, you know, come take a look, you know.
You've got native species coming up.
Yes, definitely.
In general, there's lots of regeneration.
Yes. You know, in that area that I showed, it's ash coming up.
Oh, right down below where the
Yeah,
double
yeah,
whirling
what-
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I've also removed buckthorn that was very dense, and native species were waiting. The
Right,
seed bank was there, and shrubs and native shrubs and trees came up.
ferns.
Yeah.
by the way, burning bush, you know, there's a little sprig of it on the table. It's also known as winged euonymus.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you don't know, which we all, you know, it's beautiful. We spent 20 hours getting rid of our winged euonymus once we realized. But I'm finding small little bushes in the woods.
Okay, John.
You.
I think this is so useful. I think hearing people, this is a great idea.
Okay, we'll keep this short and sweet. I'm a wildflower aficionado, and I've identified close to 700 flowering species in Dummerston. And what I found is where you have garlic mustard, you have garlic mustard and nothing else. So I got into the habit of when I was out on a walk and I saw a patch of garlic mustard, I'd pull it up in the spring as early as possible, right after the snow goes. It's a perfect time. It'll be green then, it'll be little. And lo and behold, I found that I wasn't the only one doing it. Charlie Richardson, who lives in the same neighborhood, was also doing that. So my wife and I and Charlie, just in the course of taking walks and stopping here and there, pulling a little garlic mustard, we have controlled Green Mountain Camp Road, which is probably about a mile, Day Road, which may be a half a mile, a little bit of Camp Arden Road. You're never rid of it, and you're never going to be, but you can control all of these things. You'll never reach a day where you say, okay, I'm done with that, they're all gone. You know, you turn your back and there's going to be something you don't want coming up. But I don't spend 4 or 5 hours a year maybe. My wife will do about the same amount. Charlie does quite a bit. And just in the, you know, not making a huge effort, not going out and spending days working, just in the course of taking a walk and stopping wherever there's an infestation and pulling for a few minutes. Might not even pull the full patch, you know. I'm pull for 5 minutes and go on with my walk. And it's under control. It'll never be gone, and as long as some of us are walking on those roads, it'll be just a background species, not a dominant species. So, enough of garlic mustard. We have a couple of new invasives that are working in on Route 30, wild chervil and wild parsnip. If you find wild parsnip and think you want to do something with it, wear long sleeves, gloves, and I would recommend even safety glasses. You don't want the juice on you. It will cause a chemical reaction, burns in sunlight. It is a good thing to get rid of. A lot of it on Route 30. I don't know.
In the Commons, they had an article regarding the wild parsnip.
Yeah.
They said the common parsnip grows in your garden. In the second year, you go to collect seeds or that type of thing, then you have a problem with the juice. And this person said and this article is in, about 6 weeks ago.
Yep.
So I don't know if anyone saw that, but I found that interesting. Don't eat parsnips, not my
That would be a good article to get a hold of. Okay. The third thing I wanted to mention was that on the top of Putney Mountain, they've had buckthorn for decades. And for decades, no one was doing any maintenance. So in the fall, when they have the Putney Mountain Hawk Watch, and I was up there, I'd get some of the hawk watchers to bring up clippers and we'd cut it. Of course, it's the wrong time of year to be doing that because all the energy is down in the roots. So what they ended up with was these huge candelabra plants with root systems like trees. And you can't pull them, you can't cut them, it's a mess. So they've been using first goats and now sheep. And it required actually cutting the stuff down low enough in some instances so the sheep could reach it. It is weakening it hasn't killed anything, but areas that you couldn't walk through before are now just, you know, clumps that are slowly dying back. I think probably 10, 15 more years of that process, they will weaken them enough so that they'll be mostly gone. What the sheep did do is all of the deciduous trees that were growing in among the buckthorn, soft maples, birches, to a lesser degree, cherries, things like that, all gone. Yeah. So the browsing is an option and a heavy infestation. It's expensive if you hire the goat people. I think they were paying $1,000 a week to have goats and a goat herd up on the mountain. So now they're borrowing sheep, and if they're persistent at it, I think that, I think it will control it'll never be gone, but it will be controlled enough so that it's not a maintenance issue. So, another option to think about.
And Claire Wilson is here. Claire, you did quite a bit. You want to just say something about that, the sheep and goats? Come on up to the front so they can.
We have one of this summer's shepherds sitting right here. Yes, the first, I had been long ago to a session on invasives and heard that if buckthorn is cut down 3 times in the season, it will die. Well.
Nobody else believes that.
Anyway, so Putney Mountain Association would try every year to do some cutting down.
Yeah.
But it only seemed to strengthen the bloody things. And so there was, over some objection, a very small test done with herbicide, and by golly, was it dead? It surely does. But some of us decided we really didn't want that to continue. So looking at websites and so forth, learned that in many parks in Cleveland and San Francisco and here and there, goats are being used to keep areas clear. So we looked around and found a website of an enterprise in Amherst, Mass. A woman who was a landscape gardener and realized that many of her clients needed to have places cleared. So she went to auctions and bought goats. And she calls her little side enterprise the Goat Girl. So we thought, okay, we need goats. So we did the first season have 2-week sessions. Early June, mid-July, and then we ran out of money. So I was out buying cheese from David Mage's farm. And I said, David, do your sheep like buckthorn? He said, oh, yeah. So he had 36 ewes that he had finished milking for the season. And he walked them from his farm to Putney Mountain.
Oh.
And just thought it was
And it's
just...
on YouTube, you can see it.
Yeah,
It is, it's wonderful. And the border collies jump over the sheep.
I don't know if I saw it.
It was actually the video was made on the return home trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Border collies were very happy then.
Oh, the border collies, it's just so much fun. The whole thing is fun, isn't it?
It sure is.
So, I mean, 36 ewes, wow, and they stayed for about 3 weeks, so we could see that progress was being made. It was being weakened, but of course it leafed out again the next year, and we wanted something for the whole season, so David Major had 9 rams that he could truck up, and so they were there for the whole summer. And we keep moving this solar-powered electric fencing. John keeps cutting things and to bring them down to a level that the sheep can deal with. And last year, there were 2 people who basically went up almost every day and tended the sheep. This year, I just started talking about it with everybody I came in contact with, and people volunteered, and I had more than 25 volunteers. And one group said, oh, we'll do it on Monday, another group said, oh, we'll take Tuesday, another group said, we'll do Wednesday, Thursday. Carolyn did Sundays. I mean, it was just really fabulous. And it surely is weakened, it really is, but it's so entrenched, the roots are so entrenched. One of our board members has just gotten his master's degree at Antioch, specializing, environmental studies, specializing in invasives. And he said, Lynn, maybe you know this, that it tends to come back from what he called the crown of the plant. And there is a method of using very intense heat to kill that crown.
When Jerry Hawks came and showed.
Oh, Jerry Hawks had the fire, the flames thrower, yeah.
So,
That was for barberry.
Yes, you have to have the equipment and.
Yeah, that's in the video library as well.
I've never heard of
Is it
it
expensive?
being effective on buckthorn.
the heat,
I mean, it's very effective on barberry.
I use it
Use it all the time.
on a buckthorn about that big, with a blowtorch.
A torch.
Yeah.
Yeah, a blowtorch.
Propane.
It did work.
Killed it.
well, so anyway, this is another, we'll have to talk about it in our board meetings and deliberate and so on and so forth. But I hope we can try that in an area where it's very thick with ferns, which we think is good. But the buckthorn, which is, I mean, the area that's been grazed is just standing up like dead sticks, but down low, it's sprouting
up again.
So, I hope we can blow torch it or something.
Hey, nice going.
What is this?
Talk just a moment about the buckthorn in my woods, which is about 3 acres. And I have a nice path that I walk through, going to my exercise class and going to blah, 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 different places. And I just decided, well, every time I go through, I'll pull 100 buckthorn.
Whoa.
Whoa.
And the little bitty things. And it's it takes maybe 10 minutes to pull 100 buckthorn when they're little. And it's helping. I mean, there's quite a large area.
Yeah, they're little.
Little, yeah.
Yeah. When you get the red root, you knew you'd gotten buckthorn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. We'll have time for some questions. These are possible contractors. I can't really recommend any specifically except Red Castine, who's come to our house and worked, and so he's really busy, but he does a fine job. So that's the first one, but those are all people who advertise that they do.
It's
Remove
a
invasives.
huge change. In 2004, we maybe had 2. Both of them were in Massachusetts.
Oh, really? And now we have all this.
An
Yeah.
exploding.
And then you have Chris Politan.
Chris Politan is not on this list, that's right.
Who came and talked.
If you want Chris Politan's information, I have it. He's down in Massachusetts and has a more, a more sophisticated invasive removal systems.
And it's the only thing he does. These people
Yes.
do other
Do a lot of other
things.
stuff.
Sure.
Other questions? We have a few minutes, some questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to know with the Japanese knotweed, what's the weight on the black tarp you put down? How heavy does it have to be?
I didn't get that information, but I would say, I was told it has to be substantial.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because it's got to
Keep the light out.
Try to
It's got to keep
going
the
up.
light out, and any little hole in it is going to ruin that area.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask something about a sample I have now or later?
A what?
A sample of something?
Sure, no, go ahead.
Well, we have this, Lynn, you're familiar with this property up on Putney Mountain, Nolan Stevens.
Oh, sure.
And it's been
What's it growing?
well, yeah, what is this growing? It's been, the forester's been up there and it has taken out trees that need to be taken out, and it's a nice program that we're using. But in the stead of the trees that have been taken out, this creepy thing has been growing out, and it's so thick in the woods now that you can barely walk through those woods.
Is it on the ground?
It's on the ground. Don't touch it, it's very, very thorny.
Probably
That's why I have this.
Yeah, so you pull it.
Dewberry problem?
And do you know of something other than Roundup that could kill this? It's around the house now, too.
I don't know.
Rodeo.
I just don't know. I never,
Never seen it? I have never seen it. I'm thinking from what I hear that it's a bramble type of bramble. Don't touch it, it's very, very
I can't help.
Going backwards, so you try to pull away.
I think it's a dewberry,
What?
dewberry, D-E-W berry. It's a member of the blackberry family, except it's
That could be.
it's a ground hugging.
Ground,
Variety.
and it just,
And it'll trip you and it'll be a big
it's
mess.
very, very, very bad.
Makes berries, it's native.
So it's native.
It's edible, somebody eats it, right?
But you've never,
It's really hard to get rid of.
it is. How do you, have you
I
gotten
don't
rid
get
of
rid
it?
of it.
You can't?
You don't walk there.
I usually
Which
don't.
means you don't walk any.
No, I clear it from the trail so it doesn't trip
You
me.
pick the berries and eat them.
You can?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could. There are birds seem to like them, but that's the only thing that can. It's very hard on your animals.
Oh, yeah.
So Calvin?
We want to hear, Calvin's got a question?
I've got two questions.
Okay, so Calvin's got two questions.
Would you like
Can-
to take a look at
Can,
that?
want to stand up, Calvin?
Okay,
So maybe this group around the dewberry can come over to the edge here. Yeah,
No.
okay.
well, the first question
Very,
concerns
very, very, it's a creeper.
Roundup or glyphosate or whatever you want to call it. That's bad stuff, isn't it? I think. Isn't it true that the European Union has banned the sale of this item?
Yeah, the history of glyphosate is pretty long. When it first started to come out, who's my man? Wendell Berry said, this is probably the only herbicide that I would ever recommend because in 24 hours it is broken down and it's not a problem in the soil. The problem is that we've developed a way of genetically modifying the seeds that we put in the ground so that we have Roundup ready corn and soybeans. And the amount of Roundup that is then spread on the ground where these things are planted is much higher than anybody had ever done before. And it's leached into a lot of things. So we've gotten Roundup into our bloodstream. And now there is.
The World Health
begin-
Organization has it listed as a probable carcinogen.
Right. Now they're saying that it is a carcinogen.
If they banned Roundup in America, our agricultural system would collapse. The farm communities would be the poverty zones of the world because all the soy, 80 million acres of corn are all nurtured by Roundup. If we ever banned it, I don't know how we'd survive. I mean, this is a very serious issue.
Well,
So your question
I
is?
was just thinking that for us to be using it is making a bad situation worse, is probably not a good idea. The other question was, it seemed to me a little while ago that one way of controlling invasives would be to plant or encourage other species which effectively compete with the particular invasive that you're dealing with. Now, maybe nobody knows anything about good competitors.
All the Nature Conservancy handouts, every one of them has options for invasive plant. I mean, we know a lot about it.
Is not the same as a competitor.
There are nobody. They aren't going to outcompete, but they are options too. And there's always something on the sheet that says if you want to spend the money and plant it, and not many people do it. It's hard. And to go into the woods and get something to grow is very difficult.
Well, I've been looking around. I mean, there's one place where I noticed that there's Japanese knotweed, and then there's sumac. And there's a very clear boundary between the sumac and the Japanese knotweed. I'm wondering if anybody else has noticed that sumac might be a good competitor.
Sumac has a problem.
I could say sumac is not a good competitor. It grows up to a certain height and then it lets in a lot of sunlight and dies back because it's a short-lived.
It is short-lived, yeah.
Yeah.
And that tree of heaven, that, I showed you the tree of heaven at the beginning.
I'm sorry, I just like.
Cassandra said, and I don't know if anybody had ideas, but that's similar to sumac. Would you say that's true?
It looks like sumac, and people say, oh, that's sumac, it's okay. And that's what happened on my property in West Brattleboro, all 1/4 acres of it.
Everywhere, huh?
And I had a beautiful, I still have it, a beautiful sugar maple, and I wanted the other end of the big lawn, what do I call it. And I took this tree down, I contracted with one of our tree remover folks, and they didn't know what it was. Well, I had myself a big problem because they grow approximately 6 to 8 feet a year. They just shoot up. I've only been at my property 7 years, I believe. The maple tree's okay. We got the stump on this was at least 4 feet across when they cut it down. It's now on the neighbor's property. I mow my area diligently. And I want a garden. And the shade that's coming in is horrible.
From the neighbors.
It's my tree roots over there.
So what happened is that these roots went under the ground, and now, even though you cut down the big tree,
Right, have you ever noticed how black locusts grow in groves? Well, that's what this is doing. So.
Beach does it.
And I just was looking for a way to create a plan to get it cut down. I've got a guy who will cut it down. He loves to do that kind of thing. He's an old timer, and we don't have to buck it up into, hollow away lengths. We can mount it up down there, but just to prevent it from going over the bank and across. I live up the bank from the trailer park, Glen Street Trailer Park. We get it down in there in the river and all. And I know that it extends up to the West Brattleboro Post Office. And it's probably headed up if I walk up.
This is one tree, and it's a walking tree.
Oh, it's been around, and I know there's a couple pockets of it on the West River. Because you think it's sumac.
We've got
Another question?
Oh, another question, different, separate question, okay.
All right, so I need a little bit of support, and I don't know if a forester's gonna come down and look at a 1/4 acre, but there's more than a 1/4 acre of this tree of hell. And that root system, I pulled, is straight down. It's a straight down system.
Well,
It's headed to China.
It's so, I had somebody once say to me, this friend brought me these wonderful seeds back from Africa, and I'm gonna plant them in my yard, and isn't this great? And I thought, how do we know what we're unleashing? Yes, that kind of
Planted in
thing.
a pot.
Yeah, planted in a pot.
And I've got a lot of seedlings, we'll put them in a pot. It's interesting. And but it's very invasive. And it's all along 128 down in northern Mass, north of Boston.
Maybe John and Lynn, you could catch up with them after.
All right, thank you.
See what you think.
And I tried
Let me,
calling.
they've got one more question here, and then I think we've got one more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be interested in knowing more about this blowtorch
Maybe
approach,
this
if anyone has
blowtorch
used
would do
it. Not a blowtorch, but what is this piece of equipment?
They use them to put down tar paper roofs on the big city dwellings.
But this guy, Jerry.
Carolyn, Lynn could give you contact for Gary Hawks.
Yeah.
And you could make contact with him. He's the person who would.
He's got this big machine.
Does he sell, like, is it just like a backpack with, that you do?
Yes.
Well, he has staff that.
Over
they
here.
can give you
Oh, wait, there's an
information.
answer over
Yeah.
here.
Here's an answer over here.
This
from
isn't like
John.
something that for a few $100 you can buy.
The same propane tank that you use
Don't know.
out in a barbecue
Don't know that.
is the torch. And you can get a bigger propane tank. People wear it as backpacks. They're very heavy.
Can we have one person at a time? Yeah, so you're saying you could just use your.
Fire works well. Fire is also, particularly this summer, fire is dangerous.
Yes.
Our woods are dry, and you will create fire in the woods if
Yeah.
you start to fool around with a torch of any kind.
You got a fire.
But what they do, you have a tube that comes out of a propane tank, and then there's like a cannon at the front. Now, some of them are 200 BTUs, some are 3, and some are 4. And the tube gets bigger and bigger, and the professionals use 400, and it's a pretty intense flame. But it's easy to kill barberry. You just hold it on the roots until they become sort of like translucent. You'll see the change, and the minute that happens, the plant's dead. But I have never heard of it working on buckthorn, and I'd like to know that
So
it
the
does.
Forest Savers is the name of Jerry Hawks' business. So he has a website.
Isn't this?
Well, he has
Forest
big
Savers?
tanks mounted
Oh,
on
yeah,
the tractor.
There it is.
It's the second thing now.
It's the
Yeah.
second one.
Yeah.
And he has a website too.
I think Cassandra, you might check with him.
Yeah, I use
I think
that's who
flame
you should contact.
and a propane tank, and it
Okay.
works very well.
Do you
But
cut the
there- I
barberry
have no
first
money.
and then?
No,
Just-
yeah,
just
The backpack should be with water.
but you can put it on a cart.
Tell him he's
You know, I mean,
a
there are
guy,
ways.
he likes a challenge. He likes a challenge, so tell him you have no money, but I got this thing and, if you could figure out how to get it for me, it'd get you a lot of other business. So,
No, it's true.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
he's not an unreasonable guy.
This is the Jerry Hawks.
Yeah. Jerry Hawks,
Jerry?
yeah,
Is he a skateboarder?
Jerry.
It's pronounced, it's spelled Gary, but it's Jared.
Okay.
He says he says. It's very confusing.
Okay.
G-E-R-R.
I think at this point, it's late, and we've covered,
Whatever, that's the website.
yeah, we've covered a lot, and those of you who want to linger around and catch up with whoever you think had the information that it would be most helpful to you. But thank you all for all of your contributions to this. Lynn had this idea, and I think it was a really good one, that instead of bringing in the big people who do all the contracting, that we have some really great experience in our community to share. And I think we proved that tonight, that it was more basic stuff that I got out of this one, stuff that I can take, stuff that I can do. So I hope it was that way for you. Lynn, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to add that as a forester now, I will not do a harvest unless the invasives are taken care of. Because all I'm doing is making the forest an invasive. So I just want to put it out, if you're having a harvest, just think first about, speaking to your forester about dealing with the invasives, because otherwise, I've gone back and cried, look what I've done.
Just to second that, because I know Bill Gunther, who has to approve current use contracts, has the same attitude. He's certainly told people of bad infestations that they have to take care of that before they can go ahead with their management plan to harvest.
So after a couple weeks, this will be on BCTV. We appreciate Fred being here to film tonight, and so it will be available ongoing, so you can watch it. It's available to the world, actually. So our meeting here tonight.
I forgot.
Pardon?
Did the clipboard make it around? Who has it?
Yeah, I was wondering, yeah.
So feel free now to just ask each other questions and talk to whoever
if anybody needs it who didn't get to see it, it's up here.